Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with me, your host. My name is Chad Medved. This is my show. Appreciate you being here on this Thursday morning or whichever day you are listening to this episode. It's always appreciated to have anyone listen to this. You know what I mean? I can't say it enough. If you enjoy the podcast, you enjoy what I do, there's a couple of ways to show your appreciation to me. You could always rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast. You know, anywhere you're listening to this, if they have an option to leave me a rating, that is greatly appreciated. 5 stars, positive review goes a long way for me, and it's no cost to you. You know, it takes a couple seconds of your day. A couple other ways to support me. I run this podcast for free. So as a way for you to show your support monetarily, if you would choose to do so, I started a Patreon account. You can go on patreon.com and search I'll Call You Right Back, or you can click the link in my Instagram bio. And basically what that is that's a way for you to, you know, flip me a coin or two. Once a month, $5 will be taken out of your account and put into mine as a thank you for, you know, putting out episodes weekly. This shit takes time. You know, it's hard work. It's tedious work. And, you know, if you want to say thanks, that's a good way. If you want some hard goods, though, if you want to support me in the way of, you know, buying some merchandise, I got some good merch out. I just came out with a brand new t-shirt. It's called the Building Bridges t-shirt. It is a great, it's you know, I guess it's my rebranding logo. It is a great logo that I worked with a local artist, Rudy Illustrates, on Instagram. If you want to check him out, we have this collaborative effort, and I finally got these things in my hand. I took pre-orders for these t-shirts, but I got some extras. So if you are interested in one, please go on the website, I'llCallYouRightBack.com, the merch tab on there, and you will see what I got. And full disclosure, if you're listening to this, I actually have a completely other t-shirt design that I picked up along with that. If you want to, you know, this is kind of an ode to an iconic t-shirt in history. Not going to give you any more details yet. If you want to see what that is, follow me on Instagram. That's the best way to keep with all the updates. What's up? What else? Anything else? Anything else going on your calendar? Friday the 13th, Friday, October 13th, me and Odd Pittsburgh, we're throwing a live event at Bottle Rocket. It is going to be the Halloween special. We're going to be talking about all kinds of spooky shit. Tickets are not on sale yet, but just mark it on your calendar. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, a month and a half away or something. More than enough time to get a babysitter, get, you know, someone to watch your dogs. You know, it's going to be a hell of a time. Bottle Rocket, Friday night. I could honestly say Friday the 13th of October, there's going to be no better event in the city of Pittsburgh than the Halloween special that me and John from Odd Pittsburgh are going to be throwing at Bottle Rocket. Mark your calendars. But the reason that everyone is here this week we sit down with a very special guest. This week we sit down with Doug Heilman, who is also known as DougCooking. And he is a, you know, it's hard to try to describe what Doug is. You know, he's a professional in the way that, you know, he had a corporate job just like all of us, but he is now on his way to, you know, just becoming a food icon in the city of Pittsburgh. You know, that's his goal. He wants to be known as the food guy around Pittsburgh. And what he does, he has a YouTube channel. He does, you know, Instagram. He got the reels. He got all that. He works on PTL. He works everywhere. You know, he got a lot of irons in the fire. You could see him on TV. He's been on TV multiple times, doing recipes, doing, you know, food-related items, food-related content items, and he's just a content creator. I came across Doug by, you know, one day I was sitting in Mr. Grooming and Goods getting my hair cut by my barber Niles, and, you know, I'm sitting there in the waiting room, and he was like, "Hey, are you the podcast guy?" And ever since then, you know, me and him were on the same haircut schedule for months. I would see him once a month. It was just clockwork. We would go the same exact time, and we would always say hello. And I, you know, started following him, and he was following me. And I see all the work that he's putting into his craft and his brand, and it's impressive because, you know, anyone that's doing anything as a creative is doing this work, and, you know, it takes time. You know, it just takes time. It takes time out of your day. It takes time out of your mental capacity. It's a whole thing. So I respect it. I respect people that are out there being makers, whatever scale they are. And it's always great to have them in and talk to them about what they do, why they do it, and how they kind of got to this point in life. And in Doug's case, how he kind of was introduced to cooking, a little bit about his history, how he grew up, and ultimately how he went from being, a successful business guy to just, wanting to kind of break away from that corporate environment to do something more fulfilling and more aligned with his, life goals. And it was a great conversation. Doug brought a loaf of strawberry quick bread over, and it was fantastic. And, what more could you ask for? This guy shows up and he was like, I couldn't come empty handed. And he brought this, loaf of bread, and we had it, me, him and my wife, and we were sitting down there talking. And, me and Antoinette, we love Doug. Anytime we see anything he posts on social media, it's hard not to like him. He's a very likable guy. He's a great, character, not even a character. He's a great, what's the word? He's a great personality. He's a great personality. You know what I mean? I don't like to use the word influencer. I feel like that's an overused word, but Doug is a personality. He's very good at what he does. He creates these recipes, and he does good at explaining them in a way that is, consumable by anyone that is not well-versed in the kitchen. It's not intimidating. And we talk about his origin and why it is like that. And it's pretty fascinating. So without further ado, episode 253 of I'll Call You Right Back podcast with DougCooking.
I gotta use the telephone.
Hello?
Telephone.
I'll call you right back. Call you right back.
Telephone.
I'll Call You Right Back podcast.
Should I hear myself? Oh, yeah, maybe I did. Now I do.
You hear it?
Yeah.
I had the volume down. That's why.
Oh, yeah, I hear you now, too.
Okay.
Oh, that's wild.
Is that better?
That's great.
Oh my goodness. It would have been terrible if we didn't even fix that. But I am curious because I didn't know you worked for
Yeah, I worked for Verizon. It was Bell Atlantic Mobile when I started. I had a weird...
Well, there was another guy I talked to, Eric McKenna, he's a podcaster in Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. He worked for cell phone industry for a very long time as well. And it's such a wild thing to think about that whole cell phone industry boom.
Oh, totally.
Because I had an older cousin who worked in there, and it was just, I don't know, it was kind of crazy.
Like this.
It's not bad, right?
No,
Liquid
great.
Death Melon, not too bad.
They're great.
I like the Liquid Death mango. It's pretty good. But I appreciate you bringing me some bread here. So explain what this is again.
Well, I love quick breads.
Yeah.
Which usually is like your pumpkin loaf or your banana bread, stuff like that. So today I had like a pound of strawberries.
I love it.
And your logo.
Yeah.
I just thought, well, I should make like a quick bread with strawberries. So I did it, and I made it today. But I've never made strawberry.
Well,
I
don't know if I've ever seen a strawberry. I mean, everyone knows a banana bread and everything, but I'm excited to try that.
This might be your new signature.
I love a bread. I'm in quarantine. I used to bake bread back in middle school. Yeah. For some reason, I had a home ec class, and I just always gravitated towards that. I was in Boy Scouts, used to cook stuff, and I always loved cooking and being in the kitchen. Banana bread was my first thing. Then it was overnight rising bread.
Oh yeah,
it was like Thanksgiving. But then when quarantine happened, I just kind of went nuts in bread for a minute because I was laid off, so I was making banana bread, and then I got into making sourdough bread, I was pretty heavy into sourdough bread for a minute.
I've heard a lot of people get into sourdough big time. I am not much of a baker. At least I wouldn't say that. I like to cook.
Yeah,
but for anybody out there that doesn't or they're a little, I don't know,
intimidated.
They're afraid of baking. like a quick bread like that, it's like a good starter.
It's interesting that you say that, you're not a baker, but you like to cook, because I've talked to multiple chefs who say the same thing.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't bake at all.
Yeah.
And it's a different, cooking, you could add a little bit of like, you fine tune it a little bit, but baking is more just a math equation.
You got to be totally precise. And I know actually a lot of chefs that like, they'll have a whole pastry team.
Yeah.
So they don't even know how to bake at all, because they're just like, oh, somebody else is going to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you want the good shit, you got to have the professionals,
exactly.
right? So I'm curious to know, like, I usually kind of tell people how I hear about them, but you ended up hearing about me. We met at Mr. Grooming and Goods.
Yeah, at the barber shop.
At the barber shop. How did you hear about the podcast?
I always appreciate local stuff. Like local makers in terms of like media and stuff. Like I'm always into that. Like of course Rick Seaback, you know Rick, and stuff of that ilk. And I don't know how I stumbled upon you, but it was around like December, Christmas time.
Yeah.
And then I don't think I saw you for a couple more months. So I had listened to you and Odd Pittsburgh do a really long, and I listened to the whole thing. I'm like, this guy's podcast is super long, but I thought it was amazing. So I subscribed. And I had, listened to a few, and then here I am, like waiting for my barber one night, and you are like right there. I'm like, I know that guy.
Yeah,
it was so funny.
Yeah, it's cool how it comes to be.
Yeah,
because then you like you said, like I'm a fan of like a maker. I just like people that are just doing things.
Me too.
And you obviously you got all kinds of irons in the fire.
It has been a crazy, a little bit more than a year. It's just been crazy. So I don't even know how to describe it, but I think I have been super fortunate in the food media world of Pittsburgh, and I like it. I had dabbled in doing a YouTube for a long time and never was really serious about it because I was also working full time.
Yeah.
And after the 2021 or so, I thought, well, I'm going to do a little bit more, and I still was focused on YouTube. And it's very lonely when you're at home making a video, cooking by yourself, and you're not with other people.
Yeah.
And so I've always found when I give out to something, I get back. And so summer of 22, I volunteered for the second time at this kids camp. It's a cooking camp called Camp Delicious.
Yeah.
And I met all of these people that I could totally fanboy over. And from there, they have been just like, the doors are wide open. It's like way more accessible to just ask people to cook with them or to have them invite you in an opportunity, and then just sort of snowballed from there.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So when did you start the YouTube channel?
Yeah, I started that in 2014. I did, and the only reason to rewind this tape is I was working for Verizon, working for a cell phone company, and we were opening a huge store in Chicago, Illinois, and all of the phones were now getting better, like the phone cameras, all that stuff was getting better. And we hired these YouTube stars, and I'm like, what the hell is a YouTube star? I'd never heard of such a thing.
When was this?
This is like 2014.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and so we had this big store opening, and I'd been out there for like a couple months, and we had these guys, Jack and Matt Espinoza or Mike Espinoza, and we had a crowd of people in front of the store all day just going crazy. And I had never thought of YouTube, period. Just never thought of it at all. And I came home after that trip, and I had just gone through a kitchen renovation. I used to have a super small, like the size of a cubicle kitchen, and we'd blown it out. And I thought, I'm going to record myself making something.
Yeah.
So I just made a couple videos in 2014, more in my mind to think, I'll share these with my mom or I'll put them on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I had no idea what I was doing then. But my full name, Doug Heilman, was actually already taken on YouTube. There's some other Doug Heilmans in the world, but DougCooking was not. So I just picked it.
Yeah.
And it was available. And then in a month or two, a friend of mine's like, oh, I like what you're doing there. You should go on Twitter and Instagram and stuff. And DougCooking was available on all the platforms. So that's just how that sort of started to happen.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, were you someone that's always been into cooking?
I think, I think I was a kid that grew up in the 80s, and we were, I would say, like latchkey, like both of our parents worked. So I remember cooking at like 8, 9, 10. I remember making like a full spaghetti dinner with a jar of pasta sauce at age 12.
100%.
Yeah, because mom and dad were like working, so they loved that.
Yeah, my parents were the same way. In fourth grade, I remember was like when I started to be home by myself. My dad worked construction. My mom was like a big wig at PNC. And I would come home and I would make eggs. I would make, I started off making like the easy stuff.
Yeah, me too.
And then, kind of just, the pasta, it always like, that was like more of like a skilled meal, so to speak, but it was just a pasta, you're boiling water.
Yeah, I could boil the noodles. I could fry ground beef and drain the if it was greasy.
Yeah.
That was like the most dangerous thing.
Yeah.
And then you could add the sauce. That was like high flying. But I started out like you did. Like my sister and I, ages 8 and she was 6, we're 2 years apart. And like I remember boiling her a hot dog, scrambled eggs every way you could think, every spice in the spice cupboard. I think we were now I look back, I think what I'm really lucky about is our parents let us do that.
Yeah.
And I like one year we canned tomato juice with cousins, and I took that tomato juice and I went through every spice in my mom's cupboard.
Yeah.
Old or new, I don't know how old they were, but I figured out as a little kid, I'm like, garlic powder or seasoned salt, that's pretty good. Ooh, cloves, and that's not so good to me. Like, and it was just those early things, just like playing around in the kitchen.
Were you a picky eater when you were younger?
Not at all.
Yeah,
no.
Me either.
Yeah,
At least I don't remember being.
No, my sister, opposite, total picky eater. Hot dogs, mashed potatoes with butter, bread. That was it.
Yeah, very weird. Some kids that were like, would eat anything, and some kids would only eat like buttered noodles.
Yeah, now that's my nephews. Unfortunately, I got 2 nephews. They are having nothing on what I'm making today. Like they were kind of like that group of kids that grew up with chicken tenders, buttered noodles, all that. They're getting a little better because they're getting older.
I love a chicken tender.
Oh,
my wife will still yell at me. We'll go to restaurants and I will go to like a Longhorn or something, and I'll get chicken tenders.
It's a safe bet.
Safe bet. That's all it is.
Safe bet.
Now, whenever you were younger, like what kind of stuff are you in before you become an adult? Like what kind of things were you into?
I grew up on a farm.
Really?
A long farming history. My family on my dad's side settled in Armstrong County, north east of Allegheny, back in like the 1800s. So it was a dairy farm with my dad growing up and my grandfather. When my grandfather passed away, when I showed up in like 74, 75, they switched over to a beef farm, beef cattle, because with dairy, you've got to milk the cows in the morning, in the evening. And actually, that was my grandfather's business. He what they would say, peddled milk to people's houses. He had a milk truck, then he would deliver it.
Oh, like the glass bottles and everything?
Yeah, all of it. I have one of those. It's great.
Wow.
But he would take the whole day and like drop all these milk bottles off at all these BS with people all day long.
What was this farm called?
Maple Grove Dairy.
Maple Grove Dairy. Yeah. That was your grandfather.
That was my grandfather, Paul.
Wow.
And then my dad and uncle, Paul's children, they wanted to continue the farm, but they both had full-time jobs. My uncle was a school teacher. My dad worked in mining as well, like strip mining, heavy equipment. And so we always said that the farm was a hobby, but it really wasn't. I mean, it's still like a full-time job. And so we switched over to beef cattle.
Yeah.
This like motley crew of different breeds of cows. Nowadays, you always hear, certified Angus. That's actually what we have now. But at the beginning, it was like, some red cows or beige cows. And so you have all these different.
So this farm is still going?
It's still going. Yeah, we still have it.
This is still the family farm?
It is. My dad, casually, like people will buy beef off of my dad. And
my goodness.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
so you came up on it.
Totally. So when you said, it's funny because when you said, what was I into? Like, we did not do sports as a family because you were always doing
work,
doing
cutting
hay,
grass, all that stuff.
Cutting grass, mowing hay. We planted our own corn, and then you made silage out of that. And then
what is silage?
Silage is a corn stalk.
Yeah.
When the corn stalk is green and the cob is fully developed, you cut the whole thing when it's wet.
Yeah.
And you chop it all up. You put it in silos.
Oh.
And it ferments a little bit and becomes silage.
Oh, my goodness.
That is like your mashed potatoes for your cows.
Wow.
When in the wintertime.
So you're repurposing your, what you have.
Yes. Now, it's, the trend now is like grass fed, and we have a smaller herd now than when I grew up because we had a lot more.
Like how many when you grew up?
When I grew up, I don't really recall like being how many we had when I was small.
I'm pushing this up just a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. When I was small, we got up to, by the time I was 16, we had a couple hundred cows.
Holy shit. That's
And,
you had a whole operation.
Yeah, but our farm is like less than 90 acres. But just as the story goes, a lot of other families had stopped farming. So we would farm their fields too. And so we had this huge operation. We were farming like over 400 acres.
Wow.
My dad, my uncle, my two cousins, and me. And then all of a sudden, my cousins and I, we all were turning 17, 18 and going off to college.
Yeah.
So then it was back to just my dad and my uncle with this farm. So they sold a lot of the cows. They kind of brought it back down. And now we kind of hang out around 50.
Yeah, comfortable level.
Yeah, 40, 50
manageable,
cows.
easily
Yeah.
manageable, not as stressful, I'm
Right,
sure.
yeah, because it's pretty much just my dad now. And now my nephew, who's 20, loves it. He's like my dad reincarnated. It's great. And
That's awesome.
Yeah, so
Dad's probably pumped.
because I didn't, I don't know, I didn't gravitate as my cousin had, or as my
yeah, it's
nephew
understandable. I mean, I feel like it's an intense thing to like be raised up around. Were you dispatching the cows there?
We would always we would have stock haulers take them away to either go
at least that's not like, the grim part of it that everyone sees. Cause I feel like growing up,
I've witnessed it.
I'm sure you have, but like
didn't
it's,
do it,
even as a hunter, like it's intense to kill an animal.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's wild to like, grow up in that. I'm sure it would be, it's easy to not want to, get into that.
Yeah. It's interesting too, though. I mean, it's talk about cycle of life.
Yeah.
And
you grow up quicker, I'm sure.
Death and everything has a purpose, and you got to treat things well. I learned when I went to college then, a lot of people, this is like, you start meeting people that are anti-meat or anti-big farm.
Yeah. And you start learning about that.
Right. And I, once I learned about like the big cattle industries where everything is in these pens and you don't even see real grass, I'm like, it makes you actually feel better that you have this small farm and that your animals actually have this life.
Yeah, a life.
In their purpose.
Yeah.
Before they go to harvest.
That is unreal. Yeah, definitely a different look on, the whole industry of it all. So as you're growing up in this and, you're working yourself to the bone, how do you decide, what you're becoming an adult, you got to pay bills. How did you know what you wanted to do?
And it's just like so many people, I had no idea.
Yeah.
I had no idea what I wanted to do. I mean, like, before I was a teenager, all I wanted to do was like play with my Transformers when we're not, on the farm doing stuff. And so, but I liked to cook. And when I was 16, my mom went back to college and became a nurse.
Okay.
And so mom and dad started hinting at, that would be a pretty good thing. But I hate blood. I can't do it. But I like to cook. And I thought, well, there is such a thing as a dietitian in a hospital. Maybe I'll go for nutrition and I'll become one of those.
Oh, okay.
And that landed really well with the parents.
Yeah.
And everybody.
A nice middle ground.
That sounded good.
Yeah.
And so I went to Penn State, New Kensington, and then main campus, did nutrition. But and I have a degree in nutritional sciences. But I started already feeling like, we had done some hospital setting stuff, and I'm like, I don't really like working in the hospital.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of overlap with like hotel and restaurant management. So I had worked at up at Penn State. There was a hotel called the Nittany Lion Inn. I think it's actually closed right now. It's on campus, beautiful old hotel. So towards the end of my undergrad, I actually got a job there. And then after I graduated, I stayed for another year. And I thought, do I want to maybe go back and
working in hospitality?
Yeah, do hospitality management. And at the end of the day, I just think I was kind of lost. I liked food, and I thought that this was a good thing.
Were you cooking at this time?
Just for myself.
Yeah.
Just at home.
Like you didn't have like a cooking job or anything like that?
No, I had worked in some dining halls in my early Penn State days, but nothing, I had done like a late night snack bar, and I am a good cheesesteak maker.
Yeah.
I was like one of those guys that did that. But no, that was about it for my restaurant stint. And I just think, again, I was lost. I came home from school back to mom and dad's, and I saw this ad in the paper for selling cell phones. Totally random.
What year is this?
This is like 1997.
I didn't even want to highlight it, but it's mind blowing that you how old are you?
I'm 40. I just turned 49.
It's insane.
Thank you.
I swear, I feel like you look younger than I do.
Well, I'll take it.
Yeah, but it's wild to think that it was like that. So you said 99?
97
or 97?
Yeah.
And like, at that time, did you have a cell phone? Like, were cell phones around?
No, I had traveled back and forth to Penn State with a girl that had a bag phone. One of these big 3-watt, like you plugged it into the cigarette lighter and you put this antenna on your top of your car. That was a big deal, and it didn't work that well.
It's crazy to think that was just like a couple years ago.
Yeah, I grew up in college. We didn't have phones.
Yeah,
I am of that generation, and so anyway, big sort of side detour to my career. I came home and I didn't know what to do, and so I just started working for Bell Atlantic Mobile, which then became Verizon. And when I started, I paid $13 an hour, and in '97,
back then, that's good, right?
It was great money. Yeah. And so then that just ended up happening to become a big career for the next 18 years.
You were selling phones?
I was sold phones for about the first 4 years.
And whenever you say you sold phones, you're going to stores, or like how are you selling them?
I worked in a small store.
Oh, okay, yeah.
In Katanning, Pennsylvania. It was what we called a micro store.
Yeah.
And it wasn't a kiosk. It actually did have a door. So I wasn't like one of those people floating in the mall.
Yeah.
But I did really well. It was like, hometown boy made good with this store. Like everyone in Katanning bought a cell phone off me, and I was really good at it because I like talking to people. And I was 20, at that point, 22, 23. I really liked, the technology. It was new. For everybody, it was like cool.
Yeah, fresh feeling.
Totally fresh. We didn't even have text messaging.
Were you a techie guy?
I think I liked, I would be the one that would hook up the new VCR.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or, anything like that, of course, right?
That's so weird to think about, like the whole cell phone boom.
Yeah.
Whenever I was talking to that other guy and he was telling me about it, and it's just like, it's weird for me because, I'm 33. I got my first phone whenever I was like 17. And it's just wild to think that was a world where, that all had a starting point.
Absolutely. I still have some of my original phones.
Yeah.
The old flip style, and like these ones that you keep here, like for the logo and stuff. Like I'm totally intrigued. I did not sell that shape of phone. That like came just a little bit before
you.
Me. But
I think my dad has all the old phones, like because I remember all of them coming through. But like, my phone came from I don't know. I'll call you right back was the name. It came from me, being someone that was. I was very forgetful to hit people back. Okay. If they would call me, I would be in the middle of something. And this is like, 10 years ago, whenever I was like making streetwear clothes, like I just like was trying to, like you said, I was lost and I was just trying to, throw stuff at the wall and see what stuck. And people would call and I would just be busy and it would always be, I'll call you right back. And I would forget, but it was just like every single person that I talked to, I feel like at one point in their life was like that, working toward what we're ultimately talking about now.
Right.
So they had that moment in their life and it kind of like fit with what I wanted to like do with the podcast. And I needed a phone, but I didn't want like an iPhone. I didn't want that. There's no character to an iPhone. And I just always loved, I love all 80s movies, like old movies and stuff. And I thought that, it has some character.
I love your logo. I love that so much.
I appreciate that. It's I didn't know of anyone that like had something like that. So I was just like, I'll run with it. And here we are like 6 years later.
Keep with it.
Yeah, keep with it a little
bit.
Now your experience of selling phones, like you didn't intend to like make this a career. And you said you were there for 18 years?
Yeah. It's funny how you're saying we're going through life and we're maybe going through a door we're not sure we should go through. We're picking up things. A lot of it for me is just money motivated. I wanted to pay off any student debt. I wanted to do that. And so, and I hadn't really been in much sales before that. So it really worked out, but it's to me, I think it's a burnout kind of thing. I couldn't do it my whole life.
Yeah.
So after about 4 years, I got lucky and I transitioned into some corporate roles. I did a quality assurance role. And then really the best thing that ever happened is I moved into training. So I became the person that taught you how to do your job at Verizon. And I love that. I love teaching people how to do a thing.
Yeah.
And even today in food, like when I make a video or if I'm on PTL or something like that, I want it to look like it's something you can do too. Whatever I'm cooking, you should be able to do that. I don't want to sort of
intimidate people.
Intimidate you, and
that's what makes you good at what you do, is if you can communicate that information in a way that people could, consume it and not be overwhelmed or intimidated.
Yeah. So that was what happened at Verizon. I became what was called a training consultant, and delivered a lot of training, wrote some training, kind of grew up in that environment. Ultimately, I became what was called the master trainer, which meant I trained all of the trainers
that trained the other people.
Yes, so
it was the top of the ladder of the trainers.
I was, and it was great. It was sort of like if I ever wanted to be somewhere in the cell phone world, that was it.
Yeah,
and it was great. And then now we're getting into, by that point it's like 2014, 2015.
Yeah,
I had also at this stage started to dabble in YouTube with my food stuff. I'm like, well, that was kind of fun.
Yeah, like where does that come from as far as like you being, cooking for yourself to wanting to be like, I want to like display this?
Yeah, I think it was that combination of like the technology that we were selling was getting better.
Yeah.
And these platforms, which I didn't know anything about. I didn't know anything about Instagram, very little about YouTube. And I'm like, well, people are just doing these things at home by themselves, making a video. So
that's interesting.
It was pretty early on. And so I just thought, let me try this. This could be fun.
Yeah.
I had no big goals. And so 2014, and my first videos are terrible.
Yeah.
I think they're wretched, but they're still out there. So, I can watch them. People can watch them. But I made like roasted potatoes, and it was just so boring. But I thought, like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
Right. And also I was very, in my first couple of years, I'm very trainery. I don't want there to be mistakes. I'm a little too perfect, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And it's inauthentic, and it's also boring. I think when people are going for that whole perfection thing, it's
like
boring.
hypercritical about things.
Right. You got to be a little human about it. And it's like the mistakes are the funny things.
Yeah. It's almost sterile if you worry about it too much. Me and Antoinette, as we're like trying to create, any sort of content. The other day, I posted something and it wasn't perfect. And I was like, forget it. I'm just putting it out there. And all these people on TikTok, are just like, stop worrying about this like perfection. You're spending so much time trying to perfect something whenever it like really isn't that big of a deal. Because no one is going to see it to that level that you and I are seeing it.
Right. We're hypercritical.
Exactly. About it. And you're like, people aren't even going to notice the sound clipping right here or something. And you're like, Jesus, wasted 45 minutes of just stress and anxiety on it.
The editing process sometimes is very agonizing.
Oh, I'm sure.
But I've changed a lot. So I continued in the cell phone industry. I actually left Verizon at 2016, and I moved into a wireless infrastructure company who built cell towers.
Oh, wow.
And that was very different. But it was a great leap in terms of like money, all of those things. And I ended up being the leader of a team of trainers, which also just totally changed my perspective of like how you engage with people.
Yeah.
Much more listening, much more caring. That was great. But all along in the background, I was always sort of, doing a YouTube food video here and there.
Yeah.
Not super.
Were there people that you watched that you had inspiration?
Yeah, but there was nobody super famous. Like I wasn't watching, like Binging with Babish or any of those other big guys out there. But, I always like looking at people that I think are sort of just a little above my altitude. Like, where am I?
Yeah.
Where's this person? Oh, I like
goals.
Exactly.
It's and perfect goal.
Right. And not to, not to squash your own like motivation.
Yeah, if you're looking at these people that are on Bon Appetit that have thousands and thousands of dollar cameras.
Super produced. I can't do that. I shoot everything with my iPhone. I always have shot everything with my phone.
Yeah.
Maybe turn on a couple lights. I just realized about 2 years ago, I'm like, well, my audio has been really, really bad. So I finally bought a lav mic, and I'm like, what were you thinking the first 7 years?
I know, it levels it up completely.
Terrible.
I just got people their own headphones. This is the first time I had other people's headphones.
Yeah, this is awesome. I love your setup. I'm gonna maybe copy some of that.
Absolutely. I'll give you all my keys. I'll tell
great.
you everything that I do. It's very, like you said, it's like, it's easy to look at people that are like, professionals in air quotes that have these like big budgets that are doing these things that you enjoy personally. But, it's hard to hold yourself to that standard because you're nowhere, it's literally not attainable at that moment. So it's interesting that you say that you always like wanted to look at people that were just a little bit,
a little ahead,
little elevated from you. But that's the same thing that I did with this podcast is like, I found people, back then, whenever I was doing it, podcasting was kind of fresh, but I just found like what someone was using and just used that. And then I worked up to it from this. And that's,
you look, this is totally pro to me.
I appreciate that.
I think you're above my altitude.
This is a long time coming. This was, this is first 4 years of not getting a lot of people to listen to it, but you just got to work out the kinks.
And then it's exponential. I mean, like, I think that's probably what you're feeling now. Like, for the first couple of years in doing any kind of social media, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I wasn't really trying.
Developing your own style.
Yeah. Like, I didn't want to, what I've learned is I don't want to be inauthentic. I like being approachable. Maybe it's a little elevated, but it's not out of anybody's reach, just because I want it to be organized. And that was always sort of the thought in my mind. And then, I started doing Instagram. I never really got much into Twitter or TikTok. But I have those accounts. And then as I progressed on in my second career there, what I was saying at the wireless infrastructure, I decided, I think at some point I want to take a mid-career break.
Yeah.
And in 2018, I started to really think about that and started to kind of save up any like bonuses we got, any kind of stock things that were coming my way. And I'm like, all right, how much do I spend a year? How much could I save? And then how long could I take off? And I'm like, all right, I could take 2 to 3 years off if I do this right.
Yeah.
And I was going to leave and take that break in 2020.
And then that happened.
Right. And then the pandemic happened. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to stay put. I'm working remote. This is totally fine. So I spent one more year at my company. And then in 2021, I supported.
Commenced your
I did.
Your midlife break.
Mid-career break.
Yeah.
Or hiatus. And so I jokingly said I was retiring, although it's like way too early to do that. And for the first year, I have to say I didn't do much of anything. I think there was a lot of good like mental health, waking back up to interests, because I think the pandemic or even just the stress of work for 20 plus years, you're just like,
you got blinders on.
What do you want to do? Like I still, at 49, I'm still like, well, what do I want to be when I grow up? And I may have maybe a better idea, but I didn't have that great idea in 2020. And so 2021 sort of flies by. I got married. We kind of put some energy into that. And then in 2022, I took a YouTube short course. It was a free thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to make my YouTube videos better. I'm going to become, a little more catchy, a little more authentic. I'm going to try some B-roll, all these things I was hearing about. And I was doing that for a couple months, but I still have to say, like, I wasn't really finding big joy in that. And it just so happens, back in 2018, I had been asked by a neighbor across the street who's a culinary director at community college. He had asked me to help out with a kids cooking camp. And in 2018, I did that. And this is called Camp Delicious. I didn't know much about it. I was a little scared because I'd never really worked with chefs, but it was great. The kids were great. I just helped out. And then that was like, wash my hands of it. That was great. Thank you so much for inviting me. And then when 2022 came around, I'm like, that kids camp was really fun. I should look into that again. And I figured they had probably been on hiatus as well during the pandemic. So I reached out. It was totally new, new people leading it. But the one woman that was running it was on a PBS show that I watched, like a national PBS show. Her name's Erica Bruce, and she's on this show called Milk Street TV. And I'm like, wait a minute, this lady lives here in Pittsburgh? Like, I'm fanboying out over this because I love PBS cooking shows. I'm that nerd.
Yeah.
So I reached out to her. I was very nervous. I'm like, hey, I don't know if you need any help, but if you do, I'm available to volunteer. I could be there the whole week. And she immediately said yes. And here's my co-director, Beth Taylor, and here's how, just show up, and here's the things. And I did, and they were amazing. Those two women just totally put me to task with these kids. We had a great week. And during that week, we also had Chris Fenimore from WQED QED Cooks. He came in and cooked. And I had met him back in 2018. He had been in for a cooking thing, but we hadn't really connected in 2018. But in this 2022 camp, after he was done doing his thing, which was a demo, making the turkey Devonshire, which is like a famous Pittsburgh sandwich.
Hell yeah.
He just hung out the rest of the day, and he like scooted over to the table where my kids were working, and he's like just watching us. I was so nervous because I'm like, here is like Pittsburgh's, cooking guru.
Yeah.
And he's like watching everything we're doing. And he just said, oh, I've never made whatever we were making. He's like, I've never made it like that. I'm like, oh, me neither. I don't know.
Some common ground.
But it was cool. It was cool. And so again, like going into the real world, getting out of the social media for a minute and doing that stuff, all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? Screw the whole YouTube trying to like build followers and get famous. I want to do some stuff locally that's just a lot more fun.
Yeah.
And so that just turned into a bunch of just crazy opportunities that have happened from that point on, 2022 to now. And I can't believe they're happening. Like they all just keep sort of showing up, and I'm like, yeah, I'll say yes to that. I'll do that.
Yeah.
So the next thing that happened, Chris, I knew they had redone the studio at WQED for a new kitchen set. They had updated that.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and he had said something about doing a new show. So I emailed him and I'm like, hey, if you need any help behind the scenes at WQED, I'd be happy to help. And so he's like, yeah, absolutely. I would totally use your help. And of course, like I get there the day before we prep all this food for like a day long shoot. And he's like, well, why don't you just come on with me tomorrow on the show and you'll make these meatballs with me.
Wow.
And I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
So I got super nervous, but that was great. It's super, super crazy. And that went really well. And he and I have really developed a nice, friendship through food. I love him. And then just maybe a week or so after that, the Pittsburgh Today Live kids, I like to watch them. I like that show.
Yeah.
On KDK. And they had been talking about a scented candle called pumpkin banana scone. And I thought, well, it's a weird scent. But I had also been thinking about what could I make this fall that would be pumpkin?
Yeah.
And I kind of looked through the kitchen and I had bananas and I had my can of pumpkin and I'm like, well, damn it, I'm gonna try and make pumpkin banana scones.
Yeah.
And so I did, and they were pretty good. And I took a picture and I sent it to them. And I just thought, well, maybe they'll talk about it at the top of the show.
Yeah.
And instead, the producer, Teddy, he emails back and he says, we'd love to have you on.
That's
would
awesome.
Be great. And I was like, wow, like that's pretty crazy. And so unlike working for WQED, where it was a really day-long shoot and we had everything sort of mapped out, KDK is live and they're like, plan for 4.5 minutes.
Yeah.
Can you get it done in 4.5 minutes? And this is where all of your experience in your life, somehow if you can get it all to kind of gel and help you, like it's amazing. So
well, what would you gauge your experience at this moment?
That's just it. Like I have very little TV food experience, but I've done my YouTube videos where I've had my own moment to edit those, but I wouldn't tell you that when I make a YouTube video that I write out a script or anything.
Well, I'm not even talking about that per se. I'm talking about your cooking abilities as just like, did you feel that you were advanced in the kitchen?
Well, yeah, that's a great question. I think I would say I know my way around the kitchen.
Yeah.
But a couple of times where I've sort of been validated, I'm like, oh, you kind of know what you're doing, is like those kids cooking camps. Like I had to make all kinds of stuff I've never made before. And like you're reading some recipes, but like making mole, amazing. I'll never do it again. It's like an all day thing. And I'm like, I kind of know what I'm doing. Like,
so you could, you were able to you were able to walk through that and
it's also going back
manage.
And it's going back to having parents that let you do whatever the hell you wanted in the kitchen. So like from an early age, I kind of had that confidence. And I've just always sort of been cooking. And I think I'm one of those, I'm in this generation where when I was little, getting into my teen years, a lot of cable TV had food shows.
Yeah.
Like the Discovery Channel had food shows, and then Food Network used to have actual food shows.
Yeah.
All through my college years. And I loved that stuff. So I grew up not only initially like learning a few things from my family, but like all through my formative years, I've learned from television
and picked up a lot of
those things. And now, like, I still love public television because they are kind of the last place that actually shows food shows where they show you how to do something instead of it being like a crazy competition. So like I still like Saturdays, my DVR all day, all of the PBS cooking shows.
That's awesome.
I'll watch those like through the week, and you're still picking little stuff up all the time.
That's interesting because it's like almost, I feel like a moment where you're, almost like fake it till you make it whenever you're helping these like chefs do these things.
I think, I feel that way a little bit. And then they asked me to do something and I'm like, okay, yeah, I kind of know how to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, if you ask me how to do, like, again, something crazy pastry, or you want me to butcher a whole pig, then I might say, okay,
yeah, I get that. But to do these things in like 4.5 minutes, you know, is I feel like that's a stressful time frame.
Yeah, and the other thing that I would say about the 4.5 minutes on live TV, the KDKA gig, I didn't know what they expected from me.
Yeah.
And I know you've been on KDKA, so I don't know how your experience was. We can talk about that.
100% the same.
Yeah.
They had no idea what was going on.
There's a few emails. There's no phone calls.
Yep. I actually had a phone call.
Oh, I did not. But I love my KDKA crew.
Yeah.
Everything's through email. And they said, okay, come on this day. Here's a couple forms, and you got to fill them out. So I had these, production forms. They sent me a production form. So I thought about it like a trainer. So back at Verizon, let's say you had 8 hours to train a thing, or you only had 1 hour to train a thing. And so now in my mind, I'm like, okay, I got 4.5 minutes to train this thing. So I bulletized out, this is what we're going to do. Heather is going to dump 2 bowls of something into a bigger bowl and whisk. Like, I had it that
measured
detailed.
out when
Yeah. And so that really helped me say, okay, we're going to go from A to B to C. And I think all those things will take about a minute or 2 minutes. And so I sent that over to them. And the day I arrived, they're like, we love you.
Yeah.
Like, I guess they don't get a lot of production.
A lot of production from the people coming on.
And it worked out. Like, it went pretty okay. So
that's good.
Yeah. And so, they've been, I mean, that's been just amazing. Like, the day that we did the first spot, the main producer, she's like, we really like you.
Yeah.
If there's any other ideas you have, email us. I'm like, sure, that sounds great. And then later that afternoon, she emailed me and she said, Thanksgiving is in like 3 weeks. Could you and your mom come on in like a week, 10 days and just talk about Thanksgiving? I'm like, I'm all about that, but I know I got to talk to my mom.
Yeah.
And that was like a whole different world for her. So,
is she a person that's good in the kitchen?
My mom is great in the kitchen.
Okay.
And my sister as well. Now, most of the ladies in my family, especially on my mom's side, they'll just cook anything. And my mom, I like to call her the pie queen.
Yeah.
If you want a pie.
Yeah. What was that pie that I saw you made the video?
Oh, well, we've done a couple. So we have done, our latest one was a peanut butter pie and a buttermilk pie.
Buttermilk pie. That's what it was.
Yeah. And then
never seen that before.
It's a more Southern thing. Like, they were in Kentucky and she found that recipe. And apparently my younger nephew, he loves it.
Yeah.
It's very sweet.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's good with strawberries.
Buttermilk pie.
Yeah. And then we made a pumpkin pie video. So we had made a pumpkin pie video for my YouTube. I was just trying new things. And that is why the producer from KDKA said, hey, at Thanksgiving, do you think you could bring your mom on?
Yeah.
So, of course, my mom shows up with 2 pumpkin pies. And they all love that.
Yeah.
She
was pumped about it?
She was. She was nervous, but she'll do it again.
Yeah.
It's just very early on PTL. PTL, I'd like to get there just after 7 because I'm cooking in the kitchen.
I guess what time's that go on?
It starts at 9.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so my mom lives about an hour away.
Oh,
so
that's fair.
A little tougher.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I almost am good to just go in on my own because there's so much in my mind going on, racing.
Absolutely.
And then all of a sudden they're like, okay, you'll be on at like 9:15, 9:20. And by that point, I want everything ready.
Done.
Like, I don't want to be chopping a thing at 9 a.m.
Yeah.
And then it just happens and it's so quick.
It's a blur.
It's a blur. I don't know what I said.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't mess up, anything. And I go home and I watch the DVR and I'm like, okay, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was.
Yeah. I don't even have cable. My experience was they reached out to me through an email and I was like, yeah, great. And they were like, let's have a phone call. We'll talk about what to expect. And I was like, great. They were like, pick a couple people. I was like, all right. But other than that, I get down there and you don't really know what's going on. Sitting in the green room and they're like, all right, let's go. And then, minutes are passing by and you're like, what the hell is about to happen?
Yes.
And, I was on there with a bunch of doctors, so it's like, I'm like, yeah, I'm this guy that just talks to people. Everyone's wearing suits, dressed nice, wearing pearls.
You were great. I
was
saw
wearing
that.
a t-shirt.
It was perfect.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I was happy about how it went though, but like you said, you kind of just black out.
You do.
Because you have these like, these ideas of what's going to happen,
and it doesn't
but
work out.
You just have no idea.
Yeah, you got to go with the flow.
I'll go with the flow, and luckily, I'm kind of all right with that. Talking to different people and kind of being able to adapt with people and how they are.
Right.
So it was good. I was happy about it. But then I didn't have cable, but I opened up my phone and people were sending me clips and everything. And I was like, this is cool. Like, I honestly did not expect, the feedback that I got from it. It was, but it was a fun experience. It's fun to be able to, it's fun after doing something for so long that you get some recognition of it.
Yes.
Cause that's not why I do it. I'm sure, you're doing stuff to have fun and the opportunities that come is just the bonus, but it was fun to do that. So you've been on there multiple times now.
Yeah. I think I've been on there about 12 times now.
Now, I mean, do they give you pretty free reign on what you're going to be making on there?
It's 50-50. I've given them a bunch of ideas.
Yeah.
And actually I just, this again, me being sort of trainer brain, I went home and did an Excel sheet and I said, okay, here's a month. If I come on once a month, here's a general idea. Here's why it would be good for the audience. Here's how many anchors I think we need. I could have 2, but I could just have 1.
Yeah.
And here's why we should do a thing. I just sent them something. I like German food, and Oktoberfest is in mid-September. So I said, well, why don't we do some German food? I can make something.
Keep with the themes.
Yeah, I just try and keep with a general theme of the season. Boaz was on. The last time I was on was the end of July 31st, and he was on doing a garden segment, and I was doing a garden produce. So Boaz Frankel and we were texting, and I said, okay, what do you grow in your garden? Maybe I'll refer to it. And that was fun. And I'd love to go back and actually make something.
Yeah, he's wild.
Garden. He's a great guy.
Yeah,
I met him at the studio. He's a great storyteller. And I probably fanboyed over him when I met him the first time because I knew him, and his wife has this really awesome sad animal facts.
Yeah, sad animal facts.
Oh my gosh. So anyways, that's just a great, and we just found out that they live in our neighborhood.
Oh yeah.
Really close to
that's
where
awesome.
my husband's house is. Yeah.
That there's so many good people around here that are involved with everything.
Oh, I love it. I love good storytelling at a local level. And I think that's where I like being. I like going on Pittsburgh Today Live or doing all the other little crazy things that pop up. And, ultimately I just want to be known as that Pittsburgh food guy.
Yeah.
I don't need to be a YouTube star or anything like that.
So, I mean, do you still mess with the YouTube?
Totally. I'm doing all of it.
Yeah.
I'm still doing all of it. And in fact, I'm trying to do more collaborations with people that just want to do something. So, I just did a noodle kugel with my neighbor, Roger Levine. He's one of the associate professors at the culinary program at CCAC.
Oh, okay.
So we just did a video this past week. That's fun.
I watched one of the videos you put out of the instant thermometer.
Yeah.
That was, it was a while back. I remember I watched that, but the YouTube grind is different. So it's do you have an idea of how often you want to post content, things like that? What are your expectations?
Yeah, you're actually catching me at a point of I think transition, because I find that the long form video is, number one, it's tough to do.
Yeah.
And I just don't think it's getting the amount of play that shorter form things are. And I would
look at the world we're in. Everyone wants 5-10 seconds snackable content.
Yeah, I like snackable, but yet as a teacher, that's not exactly what I want to do. So it's tough. So I want to do a combination of the occasional long form. I have been kind of shooting for once a week to do a long form. That's almost a little too much. And I think even in the summer we get busy and it's hot. I don't want to cook. So I've been doing a little bit more short form, what they call shorts, reels, all that stuff. I'm getting better at editing down to that, that.
It's definitely a different skill.
Totally different.
I get yelled at all the time because I am very much a long form person.
Yeah.
In this world of short attention spans, I'm releasing 2.5 hour long podcasts.
I think that's what sets you apart on your show.
And that's why I do it.
Yeah.
It's because everyone else is doing the short stuff.
Yes.
No one is in the world where people are sitting down and being able to talk. And I'm so bad at cutting out fluff and any posts that I make on Instagram of promo posts, Antoinette's why are you putting 6 paragraphs? Or she'll be this is a 55-second reel. It's cut out all this stuff. And I'm but it's I think that this does a service. Mm-hmm. And she's but it's back to like us thinking about like being hypercritical. It's like I'm thinking about these things, but realistically, people don't know I have this extra 30 seconds of footage, so they're not going to miss it. If it ain't there, you're not going to miss it.
Right.
So we're both very much like learning from each other. I'm thankful to have her because, we kind of started at the same time with our side hustles, and, both have been growing pretty rapidly at it. And it's like, it's great to be able to have someone to learn how to do this stuff with, bounce ideas off of them and everything.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, it's all just like, up in the air. We're all just like trying to figure it out.
It's still new and changing. I think, the one thing you just said that I really appreciate is how you and your wife support one another in your creative efforts. That's me and my husband, Greg. Like, he's in the movie industry.
Yeah.
And I always thought like his career is wild, but he's been super supportive of me getting more creative in my food thing.
Yeah.
He was encouraging me to like leave and, go do something fun for like 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
And I think that in itself, it helps you grow because you don't feel those barriers at home when you have a partner that's like super like lifting you up.
1,000,000%.
Go for it. Yeah. And a little bit of feedback is good, but most of the time they're just like, yeah, you just go do your thing.
Yeah.
And other, other folks I've seen that are like, I think flying in a good way. Like we talked about Boaz Frankel and his wife. I think the same thing. Like you can tell when you got a pair and they're really supportive of one another. And
it's such a hard thing that we're doing because like, when those opportunities present themselves, we have to walk through it, which kind of gives you a spontaneous sort of life, so to speak. It's like weekly I'm having random people come in here. And like before I moved into this house, we lived in this apartment. I would literally kick Antoinette out for like 3 hours a week.
Oh my goodness.
And she had nowhere to go really. So sometimes she would sit in her car and just sit on her phone. And like that would cause friction sometimes.
Sure.
But, for her to be, she gave me so much grace knowing that like I was working so hard at this. And it was like back when no one was listening. So it's like for her to like give me that opportunity to be able to really like, dive into this the right way, it like means everything to me. And that's why, I reciprocated as much as I can as far as like trying to, like you said, lift her up too, because it's a blessing that we have these people that understand that it's kind of fucking crazy every once in a while.
It is crazy, but and it's fun. I think, getting back to like, I don't know if I have, strong goals or an agenda. And I think that's even, in some ways, I think that's better because I have met some people that are influencers or they're doing a lot with social media. And there's sometimes a little bit of a vibe of too much social climbing.
Yeah.
Like why, I don't know if
you lose your authenticity.
Right. I heard a quote recently about just share your joy. And that really like hit me. I'm like, yes, like that's what I want to do. It's not about being popular or, number one at something. And I think there's room for everybody. There's room for more food people. There's room for more podcast people. Because you're going to do it in a different way from anybody else anyway.
1,000,000%.
And so I think that's the tenuous thing about getting into social media or media in general. It's like, what are you doing it for? Kind of stay a little bit loose on your master plan, but, have sort of like, some longer term goals or just, maybe it's just to support your life, and that I've heard you talk about that. I'd love to do that too. I'm not quite there. I might have to go back and do a little training again, just to keep the fun of the food thing going. And I'm cool with that. But
it's a beautiful goal to have because and any progress towards it is just like, filling up your power meter to keep going.
Exactly.
And it's crazy because like, if you wanted to be in this world as a creator, you have to kind of know what you're getting into. It's like everyone in the world has a podcast now. Everyone has a YouTube channel. Everyone has an Instagram, a TikTok. So that like, as you start this, it's going to be a beast to try to rise above the thousands of other people doing it every day. But you have to kind of like, I always took that into consideration in the beginning. I never started this to be like, I'm going to, immediately take all this stuff over. I knew that there was going to be years where I'm putting in all these extra hours and no one is going to listen to it.
Yes.
I had episodes of 13 listens and 10 of them were like my family and friends. And you're like, at no point in my first like 3 or 4 years was I like, I'm not going to do this anymore
Right,
because like
right.
I wasn't in it for the numbers or the likes.
It's a
It was
passion
project.
Yeah.
And I knew that if I played the long game and I just did this and kept doing it and being consistent at it and doing it better or doing it to the best of my abilities, that it would eventually, I would figure it out. I would get better at it. And it's just like everyone needs to, it's how it is with everything.
Yes.
You can't just expect it right from the beginning. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you have to be able to absorb the culture around and like kind of, fine tune it to what you want to do. It's like, I don't want to like copy a bunch of people, I'm not copying off of like what everyone's doing. I take inspiration from certain podcasters and I just apply it to the way that I like it. And I just do this how I want to do it. If people enjoy it, I love it. If not, it's all right. There's 1,000 other to go listen to.
I like that a lot. I think what I've been lucky to experience in this last year is I've now met a ton of both cooks, chefs, and eaters. And like to your point of like you take a little something from everything that they're doing. Like I don't want to be like any of those people. Yeah. But I think it was Louis Armstrong. He said he played with all these great musicians, and he'd hear just a little something, and he would bring that little something back, and it comes into your whole being as that unique new thing that you've put together. And I've just kind of gone through all of these experiences this year saying, I'm going to say yes to everything. There's very few things I've said no to. Because I think it's an opportunity to learn, even if it's not paying anything. I'm getting to know somebody, and then you never know what that next step could be. And in my experience, again, it's just opened up more and more doors throughout this year. So I love it.
Yeah, it's just a fun thing to do. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like everyone's like, we all take like life too seriously, and
totally.
And I just try to enjoy it, I guess. Mm-hmm. And it's cool that it ends up being a thing. It's cool that there's people that enjoy this, and it's cool that you get feedback. And I'm sure you get the same feeling when people will, refer to your videos and do everything. And it's just, it keeps it going a little bit more. It
is wild when you have somebody emailing you, hey, I saw you on TV and I'm going to make that thing. I'm like, wow, people really are making like, I don't know why, but I actually don't envision people making the food that I'm putting up, but they do. Yeah. And then I'm like, oh my God, I have a super fan. There's a guy, a friend of mine up at Penn State, and he makes a lot of things. I'm like, super fan Nate is now making this dish. I just love to call people a super fan if they've made something once. Yeah.
It's just cool to know that like people are appreciating something that you're like passionate about, that you're like pouring your time into.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, what like how do you kind of figure out what you want to make videos of?
Yeah, that's a good idea. A good question. I'm always taking inspiration from everything. Restaurants or places I've gone, I have a ton of notes in my phone. Like I'm just always writing down, oh, that was like a little good idea. Or if I ate something, it came with like a really fun coleslaw. I'm going to write down the fun coleslaw because that's like not something I thought about. So I'll have that. And then also, I'll kind of look seasonally, what's happening. Like we're going to get into fall now. And so if I'm going to make some stuff now, it actually needs to start going out, because by the time now Instagram and TikTok and short form things, that's different. That's very now, it goes out, people see it, they digest it, they move on. But if you want something to sort of trend a little bit on YouTube, you want to be a few weeks ahead. Yeah. So
people could do it for that.
Yeah. And back to your point, I have videos that maybe only got like 20 views in their whole life. Yeah. So you never know. Like certain things I've put out, I don't think they're going to do well, and they do great. Like my number one video is a frozen watermelon margarita. Off the charts.
Frozen watermelon margarita.
Yeah. I just cut a watermelon and cubes, and I froze it like ice cubes, and then you blend that up, and that's like my number one video. And that video is very old. Yeah. It's way in the rearview mirror, but it's still right now throughout the summer, every summer trends again for me. And when I say trends, it has a few thousand.
Yeah. That's good though. That's a lot. Yeah. There's people listening.
And now my mom is helping. Like every time mom and I have done pies or a pie crust, my mom is the star, which is fun. And I think it's a lot more fun to make a video with somebody else. So I want to have her on a little bit more. And my dad, not to be grim or anything, but he's like, you got to get her on tape before she's dead. This is my father's attitude. so that we preserve how we can make pies for him in, if
That's
mom
hilarious.
has a demise.
That's it's interesting as to have your parents see what you're doing,
Yes.
and like kind of understand it, because in the beginning they're like, what do you mean you're just like talking to people?
I don't even know if they fully understand it, but they're supportive, and we were talking about the TV experience. I don't know what a younger generation even thinks about TV now, but for anybody that's my age or my parents' age or older, like if you get on TV, you're famous.
It's like what comedians wanted was to be on like
television.
a late night.
Yeah. Because
that was like a goal of their life.
Right. They don't see all of this other social media business, these outlets that you could be on. So they really look at TV as being like the pinnacle of like success.
Yeah, that's
which
cool.
is kind of funny, but in overall, they're pretty supportive. They like what I'm doing. And my dad has said, I don't want to be on any of your videos, but I think you would be amazing. And we'll keep getting mom on for a few more.
Now, whenever you're making these like videos, do you do like trial runs before you do a video?
Well, yeah. Unlike the bread I brought you today, which I've never made with strawberries, but I think it'll be okay. Yes, I'll usually and usually what happens is I just a lot of people get home from work and they're exhausted. They don't want to do anything, or maybe they've got kids and pets to deal with. I get home from work and I just want to cook. Because when I was in the training world, it just shifted my mind to something else.
Yeah.
So it's like my creative outlet, and I'm not talking to anyone. I'm just making dinner, or I'm baking something or cooking something. And a lot of times when it's just for me, it's very experimental. Like I'm just like, oh, let me try a little this, a little that. I have an idea from all the things I have cooked, like what'll probably work or what won't. But if something turns out, really, really good, I'm going to take some pictures. And I'm going to write a note. Like while I'm eating it, I'm like, okay, I put this in, I put that in. And now that's the beginning of
the recipe.
Yeah. I wouldn't say I'm a freak that like, I don't test a recipe like 20 times.
Yeah.
Like I'm not publishing a cookbook tomorrow. I'm not doing any of that. But if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to make it for you, or if I'm going to make it for TV, I want to have, baked or cooked that thing at least a couple times, 2 or 3 times minimum. And sometimes like we kind of talked about this question earlier when I've been on TV. Sometimes the live shots, they don't take my idea. They tell me what they want. And sometimes you only have like a 7-day lead time to figure out, what can I make? So,
that's
so
interesting.
I'm worried. So I'm like, well, I've got a couple ideas and I'll just throw them out. And, usually it always works out. Like, after I throw it out, I'll make it at home for myself. I'm like, okay, that worked out. And doing that too, like kind of helps me program out like, okay, what's that going to look like on TV? Do I need a swap? Can we do this much?
Yeah.
And then I need to have like a second version already half done.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
So it actually really helps to test at home.
That was always my most, my favorite parts of all the shows was like always the swaps and everything.
Really?
Yeah. I always thought that was cool. The movie magic.
Oh yeah.
Now, whenever you were like making this food, like what's your process are you very meticulous with like grocery lists and how you grocery shop and how you keep things at home in the fridge, on an everyday life?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I have a sort of a regular go-to list of groceries.
Okay.
It's mostly now in my head. But if I'm shopping for shooting film or another spot, then yes, I have like everything written as just a check off list in my phone.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to go to the grocery store and not forget that ingredient or whatever.
What grocery store do you shop at?
I pretty much go everywhere.
Yeah. What's your preferred?
Oh, I mean, honestly, I'm cheap. I'm so cheap. So if I can get stuff at Aldi, I will get stuff at Aldi.
Aldi's is good.
I'm a Costco member. Love Costco.
Yeah.
But usually, that's for bigger stuff. I'm very value driven. So if it's very expensive, I don't want to shop at the most expensive places. Like Whole Foods will not be it'll be my last place I'll go.
Really?
Not to disparage it, but like if I can get all those things elsewhere, or if I can get something local, like especially if you can do it down in the Strip. That's my go-to. Like, and especially not working like a full-time gig, going down to the Strip on a Tuesday.
Yeah, that's the best. I wish I could do that.
Yeah, I can get most everything around town.
Yeah, the whole grocery debacle is very interesting because all the grocery stores, I swear Whole Foods is cheaper than, they're definitely cheaper than Giant Eagle.
Maybe.
They are 100% cheaper than Giant. I got a gripe with Giant Eagle. I'm trying to reach out to Giant Eagle to have someone on here to talk to them about the grocery world because it's crazy how much
It is crazy.
They're the most expensive, hands down.
Very expensive for the things that I want to buy. And so
anything there.
Yeah, so it's usually it's not the top of my list to go there.
Not the top. We got to get Giant Eagle on here to talk. Now, whenever
that was a spicy question.
That was because like I've been very very like I throw shots at them on Twitter.
Well, that's the thing. You want to support local, and they're this local based chain. And I do find myself going other places.
They're one of the biggest privately owned companies in the nation.
Yeah, and it's I just don't understand all of our food prices right now. Too.
I don't understand, and
baffling.
That's why I feel like it would be very, very informative to be on here. Mm-hmm. And I'm not going to talk to Jeff Bezos from Whole Foods. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But Giant Eagle is Giant Eagle around here. I grew up on Giant Eagle.
Yes,
everyone grows up on Giant Eagle. It's a name that everyone knows, but it's crazy, and I want to know. What gives? Yeah. I want to know why it's like that. Mm-hmm. The prices are what they are. And, I'm not just throwing shade at Giant Eagle, but those are things that I think of in my mind. And that's why I ask you where you go for grocery shopping. Because food people are interested. Food people are fascinating to me because everyone has their own things that they buy. Mm-hmm. People have their own condiments they always go to. They're creatures of habit. Yeah. And it's a fascinating thing.
Yeah. Yeah. In terms of like the what I'll call the good stuff I always have, like at home, I love real like Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, and that's only made in Parma, Italy. Yeah, but you got to look for the label. Yeah, and you can find that in certain places, but that's like my favorite. Like why I'm going to go to the Strip.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm going to order that stuff or
see Adam from PenMac.
Yeah, exactly. There's like this like amazing like do you know Mortadella? Yeah. Like same thing. Like there's amazing meats and cheese and stuff. So you got like to me, it's like special. It's like fun to go to those shops.
I love it.
That stuff,
it's like a ritual to go down there.
Exactly.
Get a coffee in the morning, go shop and everything. You can't really ask
coffee
for more.
At the end. I do my coffee.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I do my coffee at La Prima. I go over to Colangelo's and I get one of those little melees, the little...
I don't even know what that is. Colangelo's?
They're right. I think I'm saying it right. They're right beside La Prima in the Strip. They actually share a doorway.
Oh, okay.
And they have really great like Italian, like they have like pastas and stuff, but they've got a bakery case.
Oh, I've definitely gotten stuff out of there. I just probably haven't realized
There's
it.
usually a bunch of like cool little old Italian guys sitting outside all day.
I think that's why I went in there because I was like, they know where to go.
They totally know. That is an amazing place.
What so like as you're at home, like whenever you're not worrying about like making videos or content, like what do you like to cook?
Oh, like when it's a off night, like I probably have a pretty.
What would you say your 3 best meals are?
Oh, that's tough. But like go-to things that I'll do. If it's just me and like I don't care, I love making my own loaded nachos. Like I'll go for like the food that you probably should be going out to get. Yeah. The other thing I love doing, I love grilling pizza. Oh yeah. I don't have like a fancy uni or anything. I have a gas grill, a little old gas grill, and you get some like Trader Joe's dough. Go out there, like literally like 90 seconds on both sides. I've got it down to a science. You can't put a lot of things on it. You got to cook. But you can do like the cheese, the sauce.
Works out good.
That's amazing. And then I'm a sucker for anything pasta like that. That's a go-to.
Is your husband a picky eater?
No, he's not picky, but he's vegetarian. I am everything. I'll eat everything. Wow. He's also allergic to shellfish.
Oh my God.
So that luckily, I didn't know that in the early days because sometimes that, honestly, in my dating days, like if somebody was very picky, and even if you were a nice person, but you had a ton of food allergies, I'm like, this is not going to work out.
Yeah, it's not going to work. It's like we want to go eat some food places.
Yeah, and now it's funny because my tightest friend group, and including Greg, Greg is no seafood, no meat. Another person is like no dairy. Another person doesn't eat beef just out of. For whatever reason, they don't eat beef or pork. They only eat chicken. So to cook them a meal, it's like the ultimate, like
You got to get crafty.
I gotta think about it. And
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That would be a fun challenge
Yeah.
to be able to make meals like that.
I'm glad I don't have to do it every day.
I know. That would be rough. I just love a burger. You
Oh
know?
my God. I love, that's my go to.
Yeah.
Like we,
Good burger.
yeah, I love a good burger. And when you find a place that still doesn't like blow the prices out of the roof, like that's
the best of both
thing.
worlds.
Yeah.
You cook a lot?
Oh yeah. Every day.
Yeah.
Every day. Like I would rather cook at home than go out.
Yeah.
But like, it's usually still weekends. Like I love breakfast. I think we both love Oak Hill Post. Like love that place.
Can't beat it. I'm going to Morcia with them on Thursday.
Oh, that's nice.
I've never been to Morcia. Have you?
Yeah. Yes. But it's been a couple years since we've been Justin Servino, right?
Yeah.
It's been a couple years since I've been there now, like pre-pandemic for sure.
I'm definitely someone who, I never really used to, I was never picky, but like I never was like adventurous. But that was mainly because like, I didn't have money to buy, to spend on a great meal. Mm-hmm. But now, we don't have kids besides for the dogs. And that's like what we enjoy doing. It's like we like going around to different places, eating food. And that's one of the best parts of this podcast is like I always ask people, pick their brain. Morcia has been picked a bunch of times. So I'm excited to see how that goes.
We're so lucky in the Pittsburgh area because the food scene, I think since like 2009 has just continued to get up and up and up. And, like for me, when I first moved home, it was the Big Burrito Group, like the Mad Mexes and 11 and Casbah and Soba Uni. What else do they have? Kaya. Like that to me, I'm like, this is like the best restaurant group ever. Like they had all those offerings. And now you have the Shantz group that's doing a lot of stuff, but then you've just got all these other just crazy good concepts.
Got a lot of stuff
It's a lot of stuff. And like Pusadis and Dianoyas, those are like some top picks I know for everybody.
Oh, I love it.
And even like some of the hotel restaurants. Like I love the Commoner.
I've never been there.
Yeah, you should check that out.
There was one other one that someone was telling me.
Christian James is new. I haven't been to that one. That's over in the hotel that's on the Boulevard of the Allies.
Is Con Alma in a hotel?
Con Alma.
There's so many that people mention on here that I hear them over and over. Yeah. And it's like ones that I just got to start.
I have a huge list and I never get to it all.
I know it's difficult.
It's so hard.
But you like cooking a good bit at home, huh?
I do. I like the balance of I'm an eater for sure, like everybody else, and I like cooking. It's fun to have a good meal out and then be like, okay, what can I make at home that's a little bit like this? Like I figured out like a very good Thai sauce from something else I had out and about. But yeah, every day today I made pasta for lunch, and I like to do that on Instagram too. Like dinner is
just quick.
Lunch is just like one single post because like I think looking at food, I find it beautiful. Some people might think it's like that's ridiculous. You're taking
I love it,
but I love it. Yeah,
it's an easy thing to get obsessed with. You know, it's like you buy a grill. It's like that's what we did. That was the first thing I bought here. Is like a grill. We didn't have one in our apartment, so we never did it, and it was just like. Just fun to like be like made this. It's going to be delicious. Yes. Can't wait to eat it.
And if you've lived somewhere where you couldn't have something, and now you do. Like my old kitchen in my townhouse was a very small kitchen, and it had a 24-inch like apartment-sized stove, and I lived with that thing until 2013. Yeah, and that's how I cooked. Like, and now like I have just a normal size. What is that? A 30-inch stove. Yeah. It changed my world. Are you
like a what's the word? Do you splurge on kitchen utensils and like a La Crusette and all that stuff?
Well, La Crusette, yeah. I have. You live really close to
All Clad.
All Clad. I don't know how many people realize All Clad is local, made in the USA, down in Canonsburg.
Yeah,
because I worked.
I could throw a baseball at it.
I worked down here forever, so I have. And I said earlier, I'm cheap.
Yeah.
So I have gone to the All Clad outlet sale.
Have you?
Second sale. It's crazy. And actually, they used to do a couple smaller kitchen stores in the area. You could go there and get a little pickup.
I heard it was insane now.
Yeah, I think it's crazy. So I'm fully stocked on that kind of stuff. So I would say I bought good cookware over the years, but it's
an investment.
It is I bought it to last, and I only bought like one or two pieces every year until I had like what I thought I needed.
Yeah,
and then I don't like unitasker kind of a little like gadgets and stuff. Like, no, like I don't, for some reason my kitchen is totally crowded anyway.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be. But the key things that I like, I love Zester microplane.
Yeah, that was a game changer for us.
Game changer for lemons, for Parmesan cheese,
garlic,
ginger,
anything.
All that
stuff.
Like,
ginger is why we bought it.
Yes, like that's great. Is there any other? I love tongs, and because I have Le Creuset and I have like some stainless that I don't want to scratch
silicone,
the hell out of.
Have.
I like.
I love a silicone utensil.
Exactly, and spatulas. I'm big on silicone spatulas.
A million of them.
If you ever watch me do TV on the live shots on PTL, everything is with like a spatula because it makes less noise. On camera, I'm like thinking about.
That's interesting.
We're going to do glass bowls that you can see the stuff, and we're going to do. Utensils that aren't going to clang around and make a lot of noise. Like this is like where my brain is.
You can just get everything out with it. They're very, very versatile.
Exactly.
And you use that quick thermometer. That's something that
Thermopen. Yes.
That's what I need to get.
Changer.
I need to get one of them.
Changer.
The thermometer that I got one of the meter thermometers, and it don't work good at all. If I close it in my grill, it loses connection, and I got to like sit my phone right next to the grill for it to connect and like let me know what it is. So I tried to use that during Thanksgiving. I was like, I bought this meter. I'm going to use it right first time I ever used it. And I was like, this damn thing ain't working. So ended up, undercooking the turkey that year.
That's hard.
Yeah. Are you a big Thanksgiving? You prepare a big Thanksgiving meal?
Well, the whole family, we do. And that's like where my mom and my dad and my sister, everybody will step in. What
are your duties?
That's a great question. Every year I am charged with carving the turkey, like getting it hot out of, like we use a roaster.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's on like a countertop, this huge thing. So I'm charged with like checking and making sure it's done.
Yeah.
And then doing all that, getting it all cut up. And then I make the gravy. I make the cranberry sauce every year from scratch because I love that. I love making it myself. And then usually there's not any other sides I need to make. I might come sweep back in like Christmas time when we do that meal, and I'll say, like, hey, this year we're going to do crab cakes, or this year we're going to do like, I've got this cool new like Brussels sprout dish, but like we don't get super experimental.
Yeah.
So those are my duties. My mom and dad like brine their turkey like days in advance. My dad gets really into it, and then my mom makes like, if we're having 6 adults, she's probably making 6 pies.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous.
Way too much.
Everything's way too much.
Do you guys just always have fresh beef?
Always.
Oh my
And that's just the
God.
thing. And that's like the hard thing about, like, I like a burger when I go out just because I don't always make it at home, but like,
Probably tastes like shit compared to what you got.
it's not the same. Yeah, it's not. And you know what's really funny, Chad, is like growing up, we always, my mom and dad struggled, and my mom didn't always work, and but we always had beef.
Yeah.
And we had this huge deep freeze. And as like a 5th grader, I thought it sucked that we were having a T-bone steak on a Tuesday night.
I know.
I just was like, oh, T-bone steak again? And then we'd go out to restaurants and I'd see like fish and chicken, and that was so exciting to me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wow, that's funny that it's cheaper. I didn't understand. And now as an adult, I'm like, I
was never a steak guy really growing up. My parents would make it all the time. And, like that was a staple in our house. My mom would make shake and bake a lot. We would have pork chops. We would have a spaghetti. But, steak was like all the time. I was just never a big steak guy. I'm still not like a huge steak guy, but, in my later years, I have moods.
Yeah.
So it's like I'll get a steak every once in a while, but I don't know. That's the best part about being an adult is that like you can just do whatever you want, have whatever you want to eat, and then it ends up working out. Now, what is so? Does your husband cook at all?
A little bit. He knows how to make one Ina Garten dish. It's called Greek panzanella.
What is that?
It's a bread and vegetable salad with feta cheese.
Oh my God.
It is really good.
Yeah.
And he's actually better than that. But every time he cooks, he's like, I'll make panzanella. I'm like, oh. Again.
That's it's fun. That's like one of my favorite things with Antoinette is just like cooking together. It's like, it sucks, after you come home from work and like you got to cook a meal, but it's fun to do that.
Yeah.
You ever mess around with any like subscriptions like HelloFresh or anything?
Well, I have not personally subscribed to any of them, but Greg has, and the last time he did, he accidentally didn't hit vegetarian as an option. So the box shows up and he opens it up and there's half of a skinned chicken laying on the top. And he's like, you just need to come over and get this. So I have cooked meals out of there and I like them.
Yeah, they have good stuff.
It eliminates you having to think of, like, I don't know if it works for me because I like the creative idea.
Yeah.
I mean, it is inspirational, which is cool.
Yeah.
Somebody's already thought about, here's all your spices, here's everything you need. It's easy. And I can see why so many people.
But as a cook,
that.
as someone who likes it, you know, that kind of cuts away your creativity.
Right. And it doesn't cut down on any of the time other than the shopping time.
Yeah.
And I like going to shop. Like, I like grocery stores and stuff. I know that's weird. But
Well,
like,
you could go midweek.
exactly.
You know, in the
I don't.
daytime.
Yeah, I don't go on the weekend.
Oh
or
my
Friday,
God!
you know.
On a Sunday,
No.
going to the grocery store on a Sunday.
Bad news bears.
We went to the mall yesterday. I had to go to the bookstore yesterday. And we were going to go to Whole Foods after, and like we were at that red light, and Antoinette was like, "Please, I just don't want to go right now." Every time you look in that window, it's $100.
Yeah, no.
Minimum.
Exactly. When you look in the window. That's
Crazy. So what? I mean, like whenever besides all this, like what do you do for fun?
Well,
I see you work out a good bit. I see you post stories.
yeah, it's funny. I love working out at the gym. I have not been allowed to work out at the gym because I had a little heart thing happen a couple months ago. But we're all in the mend of that. We thought I had a heart attack
What?
in April.
What do you mean? Like what's the situation?
I had chest pains at dinner.
Yeah.
And I was hungry and I stopped eating, and we were both like, well, we need to take this seriously because I just didn't go away. You know, it was like
It was Greg, just you
Greg,
and him.
yeah, me and Greg. We were at a Mad Max, and I'm like,
Love a Mad Max.
Love Mad Max. I love
That
it.
was my last meal. I wouldn't be terrible.
No, Mad Max is a long time go to for me. But I had this sort of like middle of the, I think they call it your diaphragm. Middle chest pain, and it didn't go away. We went to the hospital and they checked me out, and sure enough, they said, you have something called a troponin level. It should be like under 20, I don't know. And mine was like 500 plus, which is a sign of a heart attack. And I'm like, well, that really sucks because, you know, I work out and I do all these things, but I do eat a lot. And it turned out that wasn't it. I had at some point, I had a virus, and it could have been, they said, is a cold or flu or COVID, but I wasn't sick in any way.
Yeah.
But I had caught a virus that had inflamed my heart.
Wow.
And that is what gave it the mimic of a heart attack. It's called myocarditis.
Jeez.
And so for the last 6 months, I have not been allowed to work out.
Wow.
I've called it the summer of Doughy Doug because I'm still eating.
I mean, I feel like you look great.
Oh, well, thank you. But I'm pretty much just past that, and I feel great. But
That's good.
It happens to a lot of young kids, and you know, I don't know exactly the Damar Hamlin situation, but kids in athletics and stuff in high school, they'll get a myocarditis, and you know, they'll blow it off, or people will think it's heartburn or something, and then you know they'll keep doing their sports and whatever, and it could be fatal. So I'm glad I'm glad I took it seriously. I felt like I got good care, and so I've just been like doing my normal thing, but not breaking too much of a sweat over the summer.
Yeah. That's I'm a hypochondriac.
Oh, okay.
I'm definitely a hypochondriac. If my wife is feeling anything, if I'm feeling anything, if the dogs are feeling anything, I'm the first one to be like, let's go. Better safe than sorry.
I mean, that's the right thing to do. I mean, at this point, it's sort of funny to like have something where you then question your mortality.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, damn, I am so glad I'm doing things I want to do right now. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so glad I'm not working in corporate world and I'm having fun, and there's a lot more I want to do.
Yeah.
But I'm happy reflectively. I'm always asking. I had this boss, and she used to say things when things got a little weird or a little bad. She had this saying, why is this happening for me? And I said that to myself when this heart thing happened. I'm like, oh, wait, why is this happening for me? What's going on with this? And it just sort of slowed me down. It was a little bit reflective, and I'm like, well, I'm glad I'm doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm glad I'm not waiting at my corporate desk to leave at retirement and do this.
Yeah, at an age where you can't do nothing.
Exactly.
I just watched this depressing video. These people, they stopped this older couple walking down New York, and they were like, what's one thing you would have did differently about your life? They were like, we worked ourselves to the bone. to be able to travel in our later years, and now we're just too old to travel.
Yeah.
And you're just like, Jesus, like how depressing. But that's kind of like how I, round off this whole conversation is like, I usually ask people, it's like how you manage like your mental stress, your mental health, because especially as a creator, it's like, I mean, I don't know about you, but like I make myself like just absolutely sick over this, just scheduling with people, making sure this is going out. If I have a video or if I have a podcast that I don't put out one week, it's like, these are just things that I impose on myself. No one else really cares. If I skip a week, it's not the end of the world. But for me, I get anxiety. I get like, it's a big deal for me. So how do you like manage that as a creator?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wouldn't say that I have a large amount of anxiety if I'm not doing something. Just because I have the time right now. I'm always kind of doing something. Yeah. Or I have some stuff, on the back burner that I could just throw out if I'm having a more disrupted or lazy week and I don't do something new. But I think I kind of come back to that sort of reflective, like, hey, don't worry what everyone else is doing. Yeah. Share your joy. Every once in a while, I will say, I'll see somebody doing something and you get that tinge of, ooh, that was good. Why didn't I think of that? But then you gotta like let that go and absorb that and say, again, there's room for everybody and you're going to do it your own way.
Are you a person that struggles with ego? I definitely did it first.
Internally, I'm not confident. Like, that's somehow it always works out. And so I must be kind of lying to myself about that because I'm not afraid to do these things that I'm doing. Yeah. Like I give me more TV. That's fun. Like I'll do more, live stuff, whatever. But, in the moment I'm nervous, but I call that energy. Like I'm excited.
Well, mine is even more of like seeing someone do something and like almost feel like, I missed out on that.
Like almost like a FOMO kind of thing.
Kind of that feeling, but it's like you see someone else that's doing something and you're like, Jesus, I didn't think of that, right. And it gives me like a, an immediate sense of like panic.
Yes.
And in the beginning, it's like, oh, I missed out on doing that. Why didn't I do it this way or that way? And, at first I would be so, critical on myself, like these people are doing this and it's I didn't do it this way. Why didn't I think of this event? And in my years of doing this now, I've been better at kind of giving myself a little bit more grace. with that and trying to just like not really like worry about what other people, because I always like I found myself comparing. I always struggle with comparison.
Yeah, comparison is the thief of joy.
That's the perfect quote. Because you're like, oh, I'm doing things. I would compare myself to other people, and I'm like, I'm not doing them like this. And my wife is like, you're literally sitting down with like Edgar Snyder. It's like,
no, you've done.
Like, don't worry about it.
Am I sitting in Edgar's chair?
Edgar was there. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that is amazing.
Yeah, he's a. Yeah, I mean, like, but first I was, I struggled with that. It's like I struggled with like worrying about other people and stuff. But now I feel like I'm finally like being able to like get a hold of like just worrying about me and like just sharing your joy and stuff like that. And I like how you said that and like how you kind of keep that in your mind.
Yeah, I mean I think it's a life experience thing. I would say that more than an age thing, but that's where I am. I don't really see a lot of people and think that I missed out on doing what they're doing. Yeah, maybe I felt that earlier in some of my pursuits, but nowadays I'm just if I do have a little anxiousness at something I've seen, like I just need to sit on it for a day. Yeah. And then I, if it conjured an emotion, then instead of being jealous about it or fearful that I didn't accomplish it's more that I didn't accomplish that. It's more about, okay, well, what can I do with that? Like, why did I react that way? And so usually it's like an overnight sleep on it. And then like the next day is like, that was pretty good. I could do something a little different, but it becomes inspiration. But I think that's happened again, just because I'm in a different headspace now than I even was a few years ago where I wasn't sure what I wanted.
Well, why that this is like that is because there's opportunities that are presenting themselves to us. It's like we feel worthy. At least I speak as me, and same with my most previous guest, Reed Connolly.
Yeah, he's an amazing story.
Amazing story, but it's like, in that moment it's like you almost feel like you compare yourself because you're like, what am I doing wrong to not get these type of opportunities? Why is this person's video popping off and mine's not,
Yeah.
and that's it's the thief of joy, and that's what it is. And it's always interesting to hear how people kind of navigate that sort of situation.
Yeah. It's good to have the awareness of it, and in the same sense, shrug it off. Like I see people who have, Instagram followers, and all of a sudden they've now hit 10,000 in a couple months, and I'm still floating, I don't know, not that high.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know what? Why are you worried about that?
Yeah.
Just keep doing you.
It's easy to worry about that in this world.
It catches you. And so I think when it catches you, it's a good time to just take a step back and reflect, be like, okay, why is that catching you?
Yeah.
And then, there's just so much more that I'm grateful for in this year. So that's where
Glass half full.
That's where I go for it. Yeah, exactly.
Feed the good wolf.
Exactly. Yeah.
What is what are your goals?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, I think long term, I just want to proliferate being known as this Pittsburgh food guy.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do. I don't want to be national. I don't want to have my own, like national show or something. I mean, who knows what would come, over the years, but I just like being local. I like, I look at people that I look up to in terms of those who have mentored me or just what people are doing. And I like those people like Chris Fenimore or Rick Seaback or, even David and Heather on PTL and all. I like those personalities
and being in that world.
I like I know these people now, and that to me is crazy. Like I've been in their orbit and they know who I am and they're normal. They're
it's wild.
Everybody's a real person and everybody is much more welcoming. And I think if you're doing what you love and you're authentic about it and you're not doing this sort of crazy social networking climbing thing, there's not a secret agenda per se. You're just kind of putting yourself out there for opportunities and all of a sudden they happen.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't. Like, if somebody doesn't call me back to do a thing, maybe I'm a little sad that didn't get to happen.
Yeah.
But, then I'm just going to do some other stuff.
Yeah. That's the way it got to be.
Exactly.
That's great. I mean, I feel like that you got I'm excited for both of us.
Oh, yeah.
It's exciting to see.
It is.
It's exciting to see, opportunities be cultivated in this city for new people, because I feel like that was like something that the city struggled with as far as like, just keeping the spotlight on the same people, and they're great. The Dianoyas are great. Yeah. And like, all these other big burritos, whatever, like that's all great. But it's also like, it's also good to hear about the people that no one really know. And
yes, exactly. There's a lot of food stories that I'd love to like continue to discover. People doing really cool stuff.
Yeah.
Whether it's bakery or purveyor, somebody making something, or other chefs that I just don't know about. I think we have like a ton right now. Like I'm just becoming more and more aware of a ton of women chefs in the area.
Yeah.
There was her name is escaping me, but the Whitfield was my favorite restaurant a couple years back.
Whitfield.
It was in the Ace Hotel. This is all pre-pandemic.
Okay.
And they had I need to look her up. They had a female chef at the helm. Great stuff. Like it was our favorite restaurant.
Yeah.
Now she's moved over to 40 North.
Okay.
And I've been there now last year. I need to go back. It's so good. But then, as I kind of noticed her, I'm noticing other female chefs.
There's so many.
So good. Because it used to be sort of that old boys club or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think stories like that are very inspiring to me, just to see a shift in a culture or who is up and coming, who's offering something new or different to the food landscape.
Yeah.
And even if it's someone like me, I'd like to consider myself I'm a home cook.
Yeah.
Like I didn't go to culinary school. I don't really want to work in a restaurant.
Yeah.
I like making you like a loaf of
strawberry bread.
or banana bread. And like, that's my jam, or I'll show you how to do a recipe on TV here and there or YouTube. And that's what I want to do. But I think I'm doing something a little different than some other people too. So
yeah.
We all bring something into the fabric.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah.
We have to ingrain it into the fabric.
Exactly.
All right, you ready for the ending segment?
Oh, not at all. But I know it was coming.
Everyone knows it's coming. If you're listening, you know it's coming.
Think about it.
Okay, ending segment that I do with everyone is an ending segment called Desert Island Questions. Okay, desert island questions. Whenever I give each guest 3 categories to take with them on a desert island and use until they starve to death and die. First category is 3 movies.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I really did not think about this. But, you know, like, I like things that that I can kind of, like, escape into.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, like, one of the first movies that we rented on our VCR that we were allowed to pick was... this will just be one of the 3. Weird Science. Do you know Weird Science?
Absolutely.
Oh, it's a great movie.
It's a great movie for sure.
That one I can watch again and again. I can also watch Groundhog Day again and again.
Fun fact, never seen it.
What?
Never seen it. I said it to someone on here before and they were like, that's just bizarre. Like, that's just like one of the movies that I know that I know what it is. I know the lore around it, but it's just one that I've never watched. I got to. I'll do that.
Yeah, and they're both fun. Those are fun movies to kind of like take you out of that you're stuck on a desert island.
Yeah.
I think the other, when I was in college, I would always cancel my cable subscription in the summer. And what I would watch all summer would be the original Star Wars trilogy.
Oh yeah.
So if I could take that as my third, the trilogy, I would
absolutely.
I can watch some Star Wars again and again.
I watched the first 6, you know, and you know the 3 and then the other 3 that came out after, but I haven't watched any of the new stuff besides for whenever like Ray met Luke. I don't remember which one that was
those
in.
Those are the newest ones.
I think that was like the first or second of the newest one.
Yeah.
And now there's
so much.
Do you watch them all?
I've watched all of the ones that have hit movie theaters.
Yeah.
But all of the streaming stuff, I'm really terrible about watching TV at home.
Yeah.
Because we're doing all this stuff. I hardly watch any like escapism TV at home.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's harder for me now. I mean, and I guess it's not harder, but I just, you know, I go through phases.
Yeah.
I'm in a book phase.
You are totally ripping a book. I can't even.
I've
not
been
even
reading
my
way
world.
too much.
That's good.
Now, second category is 3 books, but if you do not read, do you have books? Or I have a second question.
I have a lot of cookbooks, and my mother would kill me if I said I wasn't going to take the Bible. So like, those would have to be a go-to book.
That's fair.
Yeah, there's not a ton that I do in terms of escapism reading. I do like, I like when I was growing up, Michael Crichton stuff. Like I read the original Jurassic Park, which is like a thick,
I remember,
and that was a pretty spectacular book because it was so vivid.
Yeah,
that they couldn't even translate that to the movies. So that was pretty cool. There's this other book series when I was in college that was really captivating that I was just thinking about the other day, and it's called Tales of the City. The author is Armistead Maupin, and it was like a 6-part series based in San Francisco, and it's kind of like a weird mystery, and also like a big peek into like gay life back then, and I discovered those like when I was in college. That was a pretty interesting read where I actually like ripped through all of them, because that was just it was just like fascinating to hear about that kind of documented time.
Yeah. What about a cookbook?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's funny. Cookbooks. I was just talking to a friend who's also a chef. We look at cookbooks to inspire us, but like I hardly really make a lot of recipes out of them.
Yeah.
But I mean, there are some great ones. When I think about like there's like this, I have this like vintage gourmet magazine cookbook. Now gourmet is no longer printed, but this one was like from like the 1960s. It's a tome, I guess they would say, like tons of stuff. So you can just fly through. But I also love like picture books, like some of the newer stuff. Like on my shelf right now, I always buy the latest Ina Garten just because I like her style.
Yeah.
Who else? Samin Nosrat. It's called Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat.
Yep.
And I think she's working on a second.
Yeah, I have that one.
That's a good book.
Yeah.
Because that's like more than just a cookbook.
It breaks it down a little bit more so you can understand it a little bit.
Yeah. So maybe that's my...
I can't remember who I just bought. I buy like the figure, like I like the Brad Leone's and like he had one out. I Matty Matheson, I like the celebrity type cooks like that, because I'm not savvy with a bunch of recipes, so they I usually try to go in there and I challenge myself to make something. Okay, so third category, 3 CDs.
This is bad. I didn't think about this.
That's all right.
Okay, but I'm on a desert island, so
over and over again.
Do you know Jack Johnson?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's got like a little bit of Jack Johnson in there.
It's
I
good
don't
stuff.
care which one.
Okay.
Yeah, because it would feel like island life.
Yeah, it's
He's from
island life.
Hawaii.
It's very,
he's from
very
Hawaii.
chill.
Maybe Dave Matthews would be
Dave
good.
Matthews?
Yeah. An early album.
Yeah.
Like whatever Crash.
Deep tracks only, no hits.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would be fun. But then I think, you got to like change it up. Those are good. Do you know, since you're on a desert island, maybe something like Christmassy?
Yeah.
Like, do you know Vince Guaraldi? He did all the Snoopy music.
Well, I know the Snoopy music.
That's
I didn't know the name.
It's Vince Guaraldi. It's a jazz. It's like a jazz.
Okay, yeah,
I would
yeah.
take that. That would be a good thing.
That would be good to just throw on in the background.
Because, what else are you doing?
Okay, honorable mention question. What are 3 of your favorite restaurants in the city?
Oh, that is hard.
It's a hard one.
Yeah, that's tough. We're going to pick all the things that everybody picks. Like we love Dianoia's.
Yeah.
It's funny because like some of my favorites have closed over the years. Years ago, there was a restaurant in Sharpsburg called Bonatera.
Bonatera.
The chef was Douglas Dick, and I think he retired. It was so good. No longer here.
What kind of food was it?
I don't know how to describe it, but it was multi-course.
Yeah.
And it was BYOB, bring wine. And that, when Greg and I first met, we went there for like our first New Year's. It was just phenomenal. I wish you could bring that back.
Yeah.
And then the other one I mentioned earlier was the Whitfield in the Ace Hotel. That one, I could go once a week.
And that's no longer here.
No longer here. But like I said, the chef is, she's over on the north side at 40 North. Well, let me just throw out a couple that would be like just go-tos.
Yeah.
They're
That's what I was going to ask after
they're
this.
like,
It's like, what do you go to most, do you think?
Well, let's do that. I do like a Mad Max because I like a margarita with my stuff. And, even though you can go to like Chipotle and Moe's and all those things.
Antoinette always gets a margarita there.
You got it.
Yeah.
You got to get a margarita. I like frozen with salt.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. And then the other place that we go a lot, and I don't want it to get too popular then. We love Kelly's Bar and Grill in East Liberty.
Kelly's Bar and Grill.
So good. And not that expensive. They have a really good burger.
Actually, I feel like someone told me about their burger.
I love everything on their menu.
Kelly's.
Actually. They've got a meatloaf. They've got
meatloaf. Wow.
Meatloaf sandwich.
I
They've
love
got a
that.
chicken sando that's delicious. They've got the Polsk Alaska pierogies. Like that is if we made no plans and we made no reservations
that's
and it's
a
a
go-to.
Saturday night, that's probably where we're going to go.
Wow.
Yeah,
I
that's
got
a
to
good
try
place.
that for sure.
The place I want to try, I'm hearing good things and I haven't been, is the Duo Taqueria. Duolingo is it's the language place. It's in East Liberty.
Well, they have their own restaurant now?
They had started as a walk-up kind of taco takeaway, just like a window.
Yeah.
Now they have a restaurant.
Really?
Yeah, and it's on my to-dos.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's looking good.
There's all kinds of good stuff around.
So much good stuff.
And there's I ask everyone about their restaurants because there's people that have told me things that I've never heard of, and I've been here, as long as everyone else, and I feel like it never registered.
Oh, I'm blanking because I've got, like I said, I've got lists in my phone.
And that's what I need to
make it.
do is write the things down because people tell me everything on here and I forget it all the time.
Have you been to Gus Franco's up in Lower Borough yet?
No.
He's been on my list for
Gus Franco's.
Yeah, it's the name of his two sons. It's a pizzeria.
No, I've
And
never
he's got-
been there.
yeah.
What's the other one we just went to up in that?
Have you been to AVP over in Bakery Square? That's another that's becoming a new.
What's
favorite.
AVP?
Altavia Pizzeria in Bakery Square.
No, but that's something I've heard of.
good- yeah.
All numerous times. There's Morcia was a place that I knew I had to get to because of so many people mentioned it on here, and then the other places that someone mentioned a good bit was what's the pizza place? I got to try Driftwood Pizza.
Driftwood's good. Mm-hmm.
I got to try that, and then there was one other pizza place, or there was a pasta place that someone told me about. Was it Legends? Maybe have you been there?
Oh, I don't
It's
know.
in Northside. It's like a place where we tried to walk in there before.
Yeah.
Can't even get in. It's like very, very small.
Yeah.
It's like a place that you walk into and that people are like,
Yeah.
it's just like kind of a go-to.
I've not been there.
There's a lot of places.
So many.
Yeah, we got to figure out a place, and we all need to go.
Yes.
That'll be a good excuse to go and try someplace new. That's what me and Christian said from Oak Hill. Because I asked him to get breakfast one morning, and he was like, I already had breakfast. He was like, if you would have hit me, a couple minutes later, he was like, it'll be easier to get dinner. So we set that up. Okay, third to last question is the death row meal. So if you get an appetizer and a main course and a dessert as a last meal, what would it be?
By the way, that dong sound reminds me of like a Taco Bell commercial.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's close. That's the Undertaker, but it's close.
Okay. In all seriousness, if I'm dying, I probably want a lot of like family stuff. So the appetizer, this is going to sound really weird, but this is like a childhood thing we did on Friday nights when we were watching like, Dukes of Hazzard in Dallas and all those kind of things. It's Doritos.
Yeah.
And you get a whole block of cream cheese, let it soften, and you pour like taco sauce or salsa over it.
Oh my God.
Killer.
Yeah.
Now, back in the day.
I would love that.
Back in the day when I was a little kid, salsa wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So we bought Old El Paso taco sauce.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't think Old El Paso makes taco sauce anymore. Like what we bought. So I would say salsa now, but that's a little kid killer appetizer.
That's good. Yeah, I would definitely eat that.
So
I'm
good.
down with that.
So good.
Okay, what about the main course?
Oh, okay. Probably it's Thanksgiving. Just give me the whole Thanksgiving.
That's been a big.
I'm sure it's a popular.
Yeah, people
answer.
have picked it. That's like one of my favorite meals for sure. I love it.
It's either that or give me spaghetti and meatballs until I can't even eat anymore.
Yeah, spaghetti and meatballs. I think that's what Antonette's making.
Oh my gosh.
Third is the dessert. What's your dessert choice?
Well, again, if I'm being family nostalgic, it's going to be a piece of pie that my mom made.
You have a favorite?
I don't really have a favorite. She makes all kinds. She makes apple, cherry. She makes a triple berry. Triple berry is pretty good, so I'd probably pick that. She just did a peach. It was amazing. And then she does all these cream pies. She does coconut cream.
We have camp right up in Ripley, New York, and there's this place in Westfield called Portage Pie, and they're very well known up there. They sell a crazy amount, but they have the best pies I've ever had. It was a coconut cream pie, and then they had a banana cream. We go there all the time. Insane money. $47 for 2 pies.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. But I mean,
I need to get my mom. My mom could probably make a little change if she wanted to. But.
Absolutely. Get her in there. Whipping pies.
Oh my God.
Okay. Second to last question. You're getting ready to go on a road trip. You go into a gas station. What's your snack of choice?
This is where I get boring because I don't want to waste terrible calories, but it's usually like a banana and a chocolate milk. That's terrible. If you need me to pick like a snack.
Yeah, what's if you didn't have to worry about the calories or the poison inside of it.
Well, if it's a candy bar, it's a whatchamacallit.
Wow.
Do you know what that is?
I know what it is. I've never had one. My brother always got them.
Oh, I love them. And Take Fives are underrated.
Yeah, that's
Take Fives is runner up.
Like the pretzel and the chocolate and everything. Yeah, that's a good one.
Whatchamacallit's first. If it's chips, I already mentioned I like Doritos. That's probably a go-to. But I also always take a barbecue chip.
Yeah.
Barbecue potato chips are pretty good.
Those are. Those are all good answers.
Yeah.
Last question: if you could have a conversation with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and why?
Okay. So, and not family.
Not family.
Not family. I do wish. Can I pick 2?
Yeah.
All right. So if it's alive, this is just because I'd love to see where the conversation goes. If it's alive, I would pick Oprah. I just would think if she was interviewing you, where would that conversation go?
Yeah.
And what I like about her especially in some of the talks she's done before it, and what we're doing right now, it's always about your preparation, meeting an opportunity, and what do you do with that?
Yeah.
And I feel like that's what I've been living. So I'd love to just talk through that with her.
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, that would
What
be
am I doing?
fascinating for sure.
And I think, so I'll go to the last one. If it was someone deceased, I just because I grew up watching this show and I wish I would have met this person, it is Mr. Rogers. I would love to have had a conversation with Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, he would be fascinating to talk to.
Yeah. I mean, I literally, as a little kid, Sesame Street, Mr. Rogers, I was like glued to the TV.
Yeah.
And then when I became an adult and realized he was from here.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like that again is like a mind blowing like thing to me.
Because I was a little bit too young to like really like remember.
He was probably fading out, and he'd probably passed away.
Because my brother is 39, so he was 6 years older. So like I'm sure that he has more experience of like really watching all of it. But I remember it like a fever dream of it always being on.
Yes.
I remember the lamb chop and everything like that, and I remember just like weird things that would cut in and out. But I don't remember like actively. Watching it all the time because I was just a little bit too young, I think.
Yeah.
When did he die? Or when did that come off the TV? Late 90s?
Yeah, probably. And I think he passed away in the early 2000s.
Yeah. If I was like 8 or 9, I was watching cinema back then. Yeah. You know, I was, my parents didn't care about ratings. So I was watching horror movies.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I was, were you like a movie guy growing up?
You know, it was, before we go away from Mr. Rogers, the only thing I want to say is the thing that's fascinating right now for me is sometimes I'm doing some work in WQED studios.
Yeah.
So I'm there and like there's all this history.
Like, right in there.
That to me.
You see you saw the hell's it called? What's it called? The tree and everything?
Yeah. My husband designed that tree.
What?
The remake that's in there. Greg worked on A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
My
movie.
goodness.
And so he had to recreate the Mr. Rogers set.
I forgot you told me that.
Yeah, so you have to have him down.
Yeah, I would love to have him on.
That's not my story to tell, but the real stuff is in the Heinz History Center or out in Latrobe in his museum, in the Mr. Rogers Museum. And so they went to all those places and measured, but then they recreated all of those things for the soundstage, and they did all that in WQED. And so the tree and the clock are still in like this lobby area, and I walk past that stuff. The last couple times I've been in there, you see it.
That's incredible.
Pretty wild. Yeah.
Full circle.
It's crazy. But I'm sorry, you had a different question.
No, that's all right. I tangential. I don't even remember what the hell I asked you. But I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming over and talking to me.
My gosh, it's been so much fun.
Very fascinating. You know, I love to see someone out there just, working hard at doing something that they like.
I so admire what you're doing, what your wife's doing, and I feel honored to have been invited down to have
Absolutely.
a chat.
I appreciate you coming over, taking some time. What are you making for dinner tonight?
Oh gosh,
it's late now.
It is getting a little late. And this is going to sound lame. I'm probably going to have like chips and salsa.
Yeah, that's good.
I made pasta for lunch, and I made my mother-in-law's sauce in the freezer. I got some out. So I already ate like before I came here.
That was your big meal.
I wanted to be ready.
There you go. So what do you like? Do you watch something before bed? Like how do you decompress?
Oh, I'll go through. Well, yeah, it's when I'm trying not to doom scroll on any social media.
Yeah.
I'll catch up on food shows and stuff.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Today Live, they're my crew, so I'll catch up on all the DVR of that stuff. And especially, I just like to see all the food segments.
Yeah.
Like I'm like, who's been on this week? What are they making?
Little inspiration.
Yeah, it's all good. So.
Do you do you follow along with any current shows or movies or anything?
Like this is where if you're talking about like streaming or something, no, terrible.
That's good though.
Like I'm sort of dead by the end of the evening.
I feel like that's so much less pressure.
Yeah, and it's funny because even like with Greg's profession, like we hardly watch anything episodic at home.
Yeah.
We'll go out and we'll watch movies.
Yeah.
He's part of the academy, so he has to watch the movies.
Yeah.
But at home we watch like YouTube. Like we'll watch documentaries, and again, I'm sure that sounds lame. Or I'm watching like a ton of like shows that are on PBS, like food shows.
Yeah.
Like
that's great though.
Yeah, like Lydia's
just reading fiction books.
I don't know. Like I should pick up a book though. You've been inspiring me this week.
That's all right. We'll see if this lasts longer. But all right, to give everyone where they could find your work, where they could follow you along, the whole nine.
Yeah. So it's DougCooking, all one word, across all of the platforms. Instagram is probably my most active. YouTube. I've got a website which is DougCooking.com. I'm very rarely on TikTok, and I'm on Twitter or X or whatever it's called now, but I never do anything.
Why are you not on TikTok? What is the motive behind that?
Well, it's funny. I'm trying to change my tune, but TikTok was the whole short form video thing, which I wasn't into when I started YouTubing.
We're shooting ourselves in the foot.
We are. And so now that I'm doing more reels, more shorts for Instagram or YouTube, I'm also throwing them on TikTok.
Yeah.
So I'm wading into that water.
Yeah, it's hard though.
But it's crazy. And then I have to just think, is this where I want to spend my time?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, there's so many hours in a day.
There is.
Well, I appreciate you sharing a couple with me. Everyone else that's listening, appreciate it as usual, each and every week. Back with another great guest doing great things in the city. Thank you for listening. Call you right back.